Okay, welcome back. In this section, we're going to talk about the 2010 marketing season, which was, I think, to that date, our most successful. We won the Chairman's Award at the Connecticut Regional, which is our first time winning it. Actually, our second time winning it, first time outside of New York. And we also won the Dean's List Award at the World Championship. Joining me is the 2010 President of Marketing, Betsy. How's it going, Betsy?
Pretty good, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time. So actually, I think you had a really interesting journey. I kind of want to start there because you were originally on engineering, and I believe you were like co-vice president of engineering, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, I think my junior year, I was vice president of engineering.
Yeah, and then you made the switch over to marketing. I kind of want to ask what motivated that switch? How did it go when you made that transfer? What were your thoughts there?
Yeah, so you're right. I definitely had like a non-traditional path to being on the marketing team. I'd already been on the team for 3 years at that point. I joined when I was a freshman. I think even when I was a middle schooler, I was like super pumped to be on a robotics team. So that was like the first thing I did when I got to Sty. And I think we had like a lot of success on the, like the robot buildings, and like generally built like a really solid product there. And it was pretty exciting to be part of the design and development of that, and like watch that competition every year and like know that I made a big contribution to that. But I think at the same time I saw that like we had this whole other department of the team that was working like more focused on outreach, and kind of communicating the things that we were capable of doing as a team, on the technical side, and like the ways we were like interacting with our community and like pulling in mentors and learning from them. And there were just like a lot of facets that weren't technical that were like still pretty impressive that we were like accomplishing but weren't really highlighting. And I think just like being in a leadership role my junior year, I was able to like see a little more of like what the other leadership roles on the team were accomplishing. And I was like, oh, the marketing team's like really doing a lot. They're just like not getting a lot of credit for it.
Yeah. Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
I was just gonna say like the president at the time was doing like a really good job of like cementing good design and like building a really solid product. So I think that side of the team was like in pretty good hands. So I think my junior
I have to
year,
pause for a second. I'm sorry. Okay. We're back. Sorry about that. Okay. Where were we?
I think I was just gonna wrap up by saying I like saw it as a good opportunity to just like try something different on the team. There's already like a lot of good work that was being just I think needed to be like better communicated to people who weren't on the team.
Yeah, I was reading through the chairman's essay today, and I thought I don't know who wrote it. I don't know if did you write the essay? Do you remember who wrote it?
It was like me and the vice president at the time, Mal, who he and I like worked super closely on it, and we'd like I don't remember who read the original draft, but we like worked super closely, made sure we like went through our big bulleted list of accomplishments and kind of wrote it up eloquently. So it was like definitely a group effort.
Yeah, but I think you guys described marketing really well in there, which is it's a place for aspiring entrepreneurs. So it's like you get to work in all these different little things that amount to so much stuff that really entrepreneurial stuff is like, I think summarizes it well. You work on a magazine, you work on videos, you work on essays, you work on finances. So I thought that was really, I always thought like, how do we best summarize what marketing does? Because marketing is not really a good term for what marketing does.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of like a catch-all term for kind of everything the team does that is like just doing the like the knowledge every year.
Yeah. So with that in mind, let's take a look for a second. I found the 2010 magazine. I thought it'd be neat for us to take a look at it because I think it was very well done, and it does like a good job showing off.
Oh, yep, there I am.
Yeah. Where are we?
Oh, I'm being.
There you are.
Yeah.
Nice. Never enough 7/16 wrenches. I don't think the kids say that anymore, unfortunately.
I was gonna say, is that still the motto?
I don't think so.
It's probably still true, even if it's not.
So who worked on the magazine?
So full transparency, like I do not have a good eye for graphic design. I never have. I think I'm a pretty decent writer. So I contributed a lot of like the content and phrasing of things, but I think at the time there were probably like 5 or 6 like dedicated people on the marketing team, and they were able to do a really good job of like, making this like Photoshop photo of the robot, and not Photoshop in that it's not real, but just like kind of getting the profile of it right. And kind of laying out the different parts of the magazine so that it's like more visually appealing, and just so it looks more professional. I think that was a big part of like what contributed to us doing well for chairmans that year, is just we had like a very professional looking package that we were able to hand out.
This sheet alone, I think, is really great. It describes all the segments of the robot. I wish we would do something like this every year. Like even just having this, describing all the components.
Yeah.
And then you had, I like that there's different members of the team, not just marketing, writing in here. Like you look, Jake, he was an engineer. Daron, who was in marketing, writing different articles, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about the magazine?
Not really. I think when we were talking before you started filming this, I was thinking like, when did we write this? It's like the end of the year. And it's just like, it is kind of a nice way to reflect on like everything you've done throughout the year. Like not just the build season, but like, training the newbies at the beginning of the year in the fall, like having the big banquet at the end, like reflecting on all the awards you've won. It's just kind of like a nice way to like reflect on everything you've been able to accomplish, and also just document it. Like I'm looking at this now and I'm like, wow, we did a lot of cool stuff. And that was 10 years ago for me. So I don't necessarily know if I'd remember all the details if they weren't like written down somewhere.
Yeah, and it's just really cool that, I can go on the StuyPulse website and I can see all these magazines from previous years and know what that season was like from some of the students. Unfortunately, I don't think we did a magazine last year or the year before, but I'm hopeful that we will pick up on it again in future years.
Yeah, it definitely takes a little bit of work, but it's like a nice thing to kind of have and to hand out to people. It's like a nice thing, like physical thing you can give to sponsors and like parents and mentors and things like that. And then they can show it off and be like, oh, look, my kid did that. So
yeah. And we would get them printed so they'd like look like real magazines. I don't know how we did it with like glossy paper, if we like laminated them or sent them off somewhere, but I thought that was cool that they were like real magazines, not just like paper folded over.
Yeah.
Okay, let's and then I also found this scrapbook. I don't know if you really have much to say about the scrapbook, but I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, this is definitely another like testament to how making things look professional just kind of elevates how the team looks. Again, like I don't do much graphic design, so I can definitely appreciate this, but I personally didn't do much with the layout.
This was mostly Mao?
Yeah, this was like basically all, and I think Justina also did a lot.
Wow, I totally forgot about Justina.
Yeah, like that's a name I haven't thought about in a while.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the Chairman's Award, which is on the team drive if anyone wants to take a look at it, but I have it up here. I read through the Chairman's Award, and I'll start with the theme of orchestra. Did you guys take a lot of time developing the theme? Did you think about not doing a theme? The theme was orchestra.
Yeah, I think when Mao and I were working on this, we kind of looked at like previous Chairman's Award submissions from like the last 4 or 5 years, and I think after we were debating like how to best present all of the different things that we did, because if you read through the whole essay, there's like a lot of different stuff that we did, and it's not necessarily like easy to see how it all ties together. So we thought like, let's, like kind of pick a theme and like treat this like we're building like a really cohesive essay and like a really cohesive point that we're trying to get across. So we worked a little while. I don't remember what like the different options were, but we were just trying to look for like metaphors of different things that are like pretty diverse but come together and like make something more impressive than the parts independent of each other.
Yeah. So that's something we always take a lot of time to think of the theme for each essay. I personally, I don't know about you, but I never thought that the themes were like super important, just as long as you had something that does tie everything together.
Yeah, I agree. Like I don't think it had to have been like a symphony or whatever we ended up picking here. I think just like picking something that you think will work well enough kind of makes it like a little easier to read.
Yeah. And something that I noticed when I was reading through this, you mentioned the teams we mentor. 30-17, 34-19, and 26-1.
Mhm.
And I think it's really cool because those teams were either rookies or in their second year at this point. And it's 10 years later, all three teams still exist.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was
That's
like
very cool.
very, very,
Yeah. Nice.
um,
Yeah, I remember. I don't remember which one of these teams it was, but I remember like at some point during the build season, it was like me and Poe and like one other. It might have been Naoki. I don't remember. But there were three of us. What?
Schnucks.
Snooks. Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure it was me, Poe, and Snooks. We like took a train out to Jamaica at like 6 a.m. to like go to this other team's like build season meeting and see how they were doing and just like look at their robot and give them tips. Yeah, that's super cool that that team's still around.
That's awesome. We do have students who do stuff like that. I wish I had time to do stuff like that. I kind of want to visit other teams and give them.
Oh, you're already mentoring a team.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. I also want to talk about some of the outreach stuff that we did. I jotted it down here, but we raised money for leukemia. We did a couple of other fundraisers. We did a can drive. We did some for Doctors Without Borders. I'm sure there's some other stuff we did that didn't even make the essay. What did we just start doing that in 2010? Did we do it before then? And we're just kind of continuing it.
So I think we had done the can drive the previous year and we're continuing it this year. I think a lot of this was new for this year. I think some of the people on the marketing team had like previously done Key Club or something like that, and they had connections to other groups in STY who were like doing things that were more like outreach related. And I think when I was marketing president, I was like, okay, we have like a big team. We've got like 60 people or so, like 40 really dedicated people. So obviously during the build season, we're kind of busy doing our own thing, but like the rest of the year, we're still like, hanging out, having meetings, like still being pretty cohesive. So if we can channel some of this energy towards like other very worthy causes and just give them like a little bit of our time, then we can, still make a pretty big contribution just because like there's so many of us and we're so well organized. So I think that's where a lot of these like efforts came from.
Did you have any trouble getting people on board? Was there anything special you did to get people to participate?
It wasn't too hard. I think I was pretty fortunate that all the years I was on the robotics team, like a lot of us were just friends outside of the team, and we'd like spend a lot of our free time together. So we saw a lot of these volunteer events as just like another way to basically hang out outside of school, just like with a slightly more focused purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't too hard. I would say that I wrote a ton of emails that year. I was probably in everyone's inboxes more than they would have liked. But it's just sending reminders and updates and things like that.
You have to be annoying. You have to be annoying to get people to do.
Yeah, exactly. So I think just like having people that get along helps, but you can't control that. And other than that, like super clear communication helps.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good tip for students. Is like if you're running one of these events, be a little bit of a pest.
Yeah.
People will. It's not necessarily they don't want to go. It's that they will forget it's happening.
Yeah, definitely can't be shy about doing that.
So this was our essay. We went over to Connecticut for the chairman's award. Now you can submit chairmans at every regional you attend, but back then you could only pick one. And this was, I believe, the first time we'd ever submitted at Connecticut.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Was there a reason we made that decision, or is it just like we just did that because we felt we had a better chance?
I'm pretty sure the reason we did it is kind of like I said, when I was here, I saw that our marketing team was like doing a lot of good things, and we just like there wasn't a ton of recognition outside of the team for that. And I think we kind of felt that we had like a very established presence at the New York City regional, and for whatever reason, what we were accomplishing like wasn't really jiving with what the judges were looking for, but we still thought that we were like doing enough and deserved to be recognized for it. So it was definitely a gamble because it wasn't our, like, we didn't go to that regional every year, but I think we decided that it'd be worth just like trying something different, like, you know, trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Like that's, you know, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I expect something like that.
Yeah.
And you know, it got us. You know, we won chairman's at Connecticut that year, and we ended up winning the 2 years after that as well.
Mhm.
And it really got the ball rolling. And one of the things that I was, from my perspective, I was most impressed with was we had a good amount of, you know, newbies and like younger members who were starting to get involved. And we just kind of, you got the ball rolling this year, and it kind of kept going into future years. And I was wondering if you had any advice for some of the students on the team now, because our marketing team is only 3 students right now, and they're, you know, they try hard to recruit more people, but it's very difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that it's worth communicating is like, you know, tech is just like a really like prevalent field. It's pretty hard to like not, you know, if you're like looking for a job, like a lot of jobs are going to be in the technology industry, and not all of them necessarily have like require you to have a technical background, but having some amount of technological literacy is like pretty important. So I think coming at it from the approach of like, you know, maybe if you personally aren't super excited about like doing designing and engineering, but you like can appreciate it and, you know, want to like try your hand at like making videos or putting out like web content and things like that. Like the team accomplishes a lot, and you've got like a lot of really cool stuff to talk about. So you can kind of look at it as like getting yourself involved with technology, even if like that's not something that you're like doing the technology yourself is like not something you're particularly interested in.
Right. And you know, a big part of the technology field has nothing to do with, you know, designing something or building something. It's just management, and
Yeah.
finances are very important for every
Yeah,
company.
exactly. But like having some like some base understanding of like what, you know, what the team is doing with, or what like a big company is doing is going to like make you more adept at doing your job.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's hop over to the Dean's List essay, which you wrote for Seth. Kind of unfair, you wrote Seth's and Seth wrote yours, so Seth was kind of set up for success because you're such a good writer. And you know, I encourage anyone who is writing a Dean's List essay to read through this one, because I think it's really great. There's not really anything that, like, Seth Berg saved someone's life. Like, there's nothing in there that incredible, like he's taking a,
there's no hyperbole or anything.
right. It's just, you know, reading this, you can tell that the writer admires the person that's being written about, thinks they're very impressive, thinks they're a great leader, and there's just a really clear personal connection between the two of you guys. And it shows through in the essay. Is there anything you want to say about this essay?
It's funny, looking at it now, I distinctly remember I was writing it and I was like, man, this word count's gonna be like tricky to hit. Like I remember like needing to be pretty deliberate with how I phrase things, because I don't remember what the word limit was, but like if, you know, if this was like a 500 word essay, there were probably like 499 words in this. Just, yeah, I mean, like you said, I had a great subject to write about. Like I knew Seth for almost 4 years at that point and kind of saw like development as an engineer and as a leader. So it was like pretty easy to kind of write that out and communicate it.
And then, so this is a question about both the Chairman's Award and the Dean's List Award. I actually didn't ask you this before. I don't know the answer to it, and I'm a little worried about the answer, but
I might not.
I think you'll know. What in terms of timing, were you doing these at the last minute, or were you, you know, finish with them pretty much ahead of time and just touching them up when they were ready to submit?
You know, I actually remember getting the Chairman's Award submission done like a few days before.
Okay.
Which is kind of surprising.
Okay, that was the answer I was hoping for. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely not typical for how I got most of my work done in high school, but that I remember we like had a little bit of time to spare.
Okay. And then do you remember for the Dean's List or no? I got the answer.
I don't remember being super rushed.
Okay, so that's good. I think that, you know, we, especially in the last couple of years have had a big issue on the team where we're finishing these essays really last minute.
Yeah.
I think it's something we're getting better at, and I think it's something students are definitely aware of and want to get better at. But it's definitely hard because you want to plan it perfectly, right?
Hmm.
So students will take a lot of time planning and then not leave themselves a lot of time to actually make it. It's like the robot, right? You spend all this time prototyping and designing it, and you want to do
Right.
everything perfectly, and then you've
And then
had
you have
no
no time.
time to build any of it,
Yeah.
and half of it goes out the window, and it's really hard to learn how to manage that well.
Yeah,
But
I think one thing I've actually learned, like career-wise, that probably would have helped with this, and might even help, the marketing team now, is I write like weekly updates for my team of what everything I've done that week for work. Um, and then if I'm like, writing a personal review for myself at the end of the year for like salaries and things like that, I can look back at all my weekly emails and be like, oh yeah, like I did this in February, I did this like 9 months ago or whatever. So because marketing is like not just the build season, it's like the whole year. Like, if you're one of the leaders of the marketing team, like maybe at the end of every month, just like make a little list of like everything you got done. And that way, by the time you're like getting to write the essay, you can, look at your like big list of everything you've done and be like, okay, now I just need to like put this together. You're not wasting any time like trying to figure out what you did.
that's a really great idea. I like that a lot. I hope they do that. We also do like we do recaps for every meeting for all the departments. The kids post it on our Slack, and we do pre-caps. So it's like
Oh, you have Slack. That's so hip.
we're very cool. We have the premium because we're 501c3.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So they could also utilize those, I think, to put together their monthly, and then they can use their monthly for whatever it is, magazines, essays, anything.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, I just want to say again, I think this is a really great essay, and I think it's always great to have a student who has a close bond with the student being written about, and at least involved in the process of writing the essay, because it's important that these deans' essays really show that connection of like how special this person is. So yeah, really great job on that. Okay, so I have nothing else robotics wise. I think a lot of our students are really interested to hear about your college experience and your career experience. So first off, tell the kids where you went to school.
Yeah, so I went to MIT.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty great. That was my top choice when I was in high school, and I loved it. I would, if anyone on the team is like thinking about going to MIT, I couldn't recommend it more. Like I had such a wonderful experience there. One thing that I think is kind of funny is I really enjoyed the experience of like being on a team in high school. But I wanted to do something different. Like MIT has a whole plethora of like solar car teams and like rocket design teams and like all of these things that have like a very similar flavor to doing first robotics. But I was actually on a like varsity sport when I was in college. So I did something totally different.
I didn't know that. What sport?
Rowing.
Oh, cool. Maybe
Yeah.
I did know that. Maybe I did know that and forgot it. But okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, it's weird. Even college is like kind of a while ago now. Yeah. So anyway, MIT was great. I went to grad school after that. I got my master's at Stanford. I guess when I was at MIT, I majored in mechanical engineering. Probably not surprising given how much I like robotics. And really one thing I liked a lot about MIT is it was like very hands-on. Unfortunately, he passed away, but Woody Flowers, the guy who helped found FIRST, was originally an MIT professor, and one of the classes he developed was a class I took in college, and it's just like it's like a mini robotics competition.
Yeah, I think the first robotics competition is based off of that class.
Yeah. So getting to take that class, it was like, oh, I've done this already. Like piece of cake. I mean, it wasn't. It's still hard. It's hard. No matter how many years of experience you have, it's always hard to like do a challenge like that. But yeah, I loved having the hands-on experience in my class. Learned a ton. Then I went to Stanford, got my master's in mechatronics, which is like kind of a mix of like software engineering and electronical engineering and mechanical engineering. And then almost 4 years ago, I started working at SpaceX, and that's where I am today.
Yeah, so that's really awesome. I know you work at SpaceX. Carrillo works at SpaceX too, I want to say.
Carrillo did work at SpaceX. He works at some, like, it's kind of crazy, like an agricultural startup in the Bay.
Cool.
Yeah, so
I knew he was in the Bay Area.
yeah, so he worked at SpaceX for a couple years. Paulina, who was president in 2007 of
Mhm.
engineering, she still works at SpaceX. So yeah, we have like for a single high school robotics team, we have like pretty decent representation.
Yeah. So I don't know how much are you allowed to say about your work, but
Oh, a decent amount.
okay. So
Um,
so why don't you say, what do you do at SpaceX? What projects are you working on?
Yeah, so I work as a structural engineer. So a lot of what I do, specifically, it's with carbon fiber structures. So I'll do design and analysis. Some of these things are like pretty small parts, like brackets that hold components. More recently, I've gotten involved in doing like very large structures. If you can, one thing I love about SpaceX is we like broadcast during launches, so you can kind of like, I can talk about it because you can literally see it and we're talking about it like in the broadcast. But the next time you watch a launch, if you're like looking at the Falcon rocket and you see like a black part in the center, that entire thing is carbon fiber and it's called the inner stage. And like I work on design and analysis of that, among other things. So like understanding like how
Awesome.
that behaves during flight, like making sure that if there are any problems, like I try to fix them, designing new parts for it to like make it more robust. Yeah, so that's what I do nowadays.
What do you use to design? Like, is there a specific program you use?
Yeah, so learning CAD in high school was pretty great because I have literally used it every, year of my life since. We use something that's developed by Siemens. So it's not, unfortunately, a lot of companies do use SolidWorks. We don't. Actually, no, I guess, are they still using Autodesk?
And that's the I, you mean, for the
Yeah.
team? We use SolidWorks right now, but we're discussing a switch to Onshape.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah, I was gonna say there are a whole bunch of different flavors of CAD, but once you like kind of understand how it works the first time, you can pick up other things pretty quickly.
We teach AutoCAD and drafting, and I teach in my drafting class. I try to get to Inventor as well.
Oh, nice.
Sometimes it's
That's right. Yeah, I took drafting. I
yeah,
was not great at drafting.
it's okay. So if you're not good at drafting, it's okay. You could still be a world-class engineer.
Yeah, I was gonna say I probably would have gotten an 85 in your class. I was too
No,
sloppy.
I'm sure you would have been great. I'm easy. The kid's not easy. I'm too nice. Okay. And what project are you currently working on at SpaceX?
So one thing I'm working on now is SpaceX among the various things that we do. We launched something called the Falcon Heavy, which is like 3 boosters that are basically strapped together. It's a little more elegant than that. But the design of the rocket is to take up like very heavy satellites or other payloads into orbit. And we recently got awarded contracts from the Air Force to launch a couple things on Falcon Heavy. And with that has come a lot of like scrutiny of our design and our like testing processes and things like that. So a lot of my job now is making sure, like going back through our designs and going back through our analysis and kind of making sure we've done a thorough job of addressing like every potential scenario. And kind of related to the marketing thing, actually, I feel like having the experience of understanding a technical problem and being able to like have the language to communicate that well to either a technical audience or even not a technical audience, like that's a pretty valuable skill. Like I still do that in my job today. Kind of like talking with Air Force engineers and like explaining what the SpaceX designs are. And like why they're going to work, why they're safe.
And that's something that, as someone who's obviously not involved in any of Elon Musk's companies, I think that there's something he's really good at in his companies. Is you guys do a good job of explaining things to the non-technical person. Like, here's a Cybertruck, it's cool, and it's yeah, it's cool. I want to know how it works. Here's his Tesla. Like, before Tesla, electric cars were boring. Like they were lame.
Yeah, definitely boring and unsexy.
Yeah, the Prius was lame. And then this Tesla comes along. It's like, oh, this car's really cool, and it happens to have an electric motor that powers the wheels. So I think that communication piece is really important for all these companies, because you can have a great product, but if you can't communicate it well, you're not going to be able to do any business.
Yep. Yeah, definitely true.
Okay, that's all I had. Is there anything else you wanted to mention to these kids? Any advice you would give them?
Um, I think the only thing I want to say is like, you're all doing great. I know this is not a difficult time to be a student or to learn or to, be on a robotics team when you spend all this time like building something in the build season and you never really get a chance to compete. But it's still a really valuable experience to go through. There's still a lot you can take away from this season. So as frustrated and as upset as you are and have a right to be, you should still be very proud of yourselves and everything you accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, they built a terrific robot this year, and
Yeah.
they had a terrific season with the little bit that they played. They did a really great job. So I agree, they should be proud. Okay, well, thanks so much for taking the time, Betsy. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
you're welcome.
Keep making us proud, okay?
Yep, will do.